You're listening to the Visible Expert Podcast, where we share stories, research, and actionable insights to help B2B marketers and practitioners drive extraordinary growth in their professional lives. What's up, everybody? I'm John Tyerman.
And as always, I'm Kelly Waffle.
And you're listening to the Visible Expert Podcast. So we chatted today with Michael Brenner, and I thought his conversation, we had a really good chat with him. He's a stand-up guy.
There's so many different areas you can talk to Michael about. He knows so much, not only about marketing, but business and leadership, and provides a lot of great insights across the board.
Yeah, I think he'll give you a lot of actionable tips in our conversation with him that I think you'll be able to take and implement right away. So he talks about his time at SAP. He talks about employee activation and customer experience and why so many marketers are struggling with it. And so, Kelly, what would you say your one big takeaway is?
I think it was really good. I hear this all the time in conversations I have with people is, how do you measure content marketing? And I think Michael does a really nice job of framing metrics and different types of measurement against his version of the funnel, which includes reach, engagement, convert, and retain. So against each of those phases, Michael's got different ways that you can measure your performance and your success with content marketing. And I also thought he brought up a really good point around lifetime value that a lot of people don't really consider. And Michael brought up the point that customers who engage with content generally provide 3 to 4 times as much revenue as those customers who do not engage with content. So that's a pretty compelling argument of trying to put in a little extra time to get folks to engage with your content. How about you?
Well, I thought his distinction between employee advocacy and employee activation was particularly insightful, where employee advocacy, the intention is different than employee activation, and employee advocacy is, asking folks within your organization to share content on social media, whereas employee activation is more organic, and it's done, the focus is really on the customers and sharing stories, and it's done in a more organic way. So I thought that perspective was useful, and I think it makes sense because you see online, when someone's just sharing something to share it, you can tell, right? Yeah. You can tell that it's not authentic. So I think that's a trend that we're kind of seeing with our guests, and being authentic and actually having passion for what you do. So I thought that was really, really insightful.
Yeah, and I also thought he brought up a great insight around the fact that employees can really scale your marketing. So, obviously all of us feel at one point or another that we don't have enough budget, we don't have enough resources, but on some of your marketing efforts, you can actually leverage your employees to amplify your message and get it out there and really hit a much broader audience than what you had originally planned.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so this episode is sponsored by the Hinge Research Institute. And if you're involved in marketing demand or lead generation and you want to use a data-driven content strategy, consider using original research. The Hinge Research Institute offers a range of services from tiered sponsorships of original studies to custom research on specific industry challenges. And we found that high-growth professional services firms are actually 3 times more likely than no-growth firms to use original research in their content strategy. And, according to Forbes, companies who adopt a data-driven marketing are 6 times more likely to be profitable year over year. So if you're interested in learning more, email us at research@hingemarketing.com, and we'll find the right approach to using original research in your marketing strategy. So on that note, let's go right into our interview with Michael.
Michael, thank you for joining John and myself on this Visible Expert podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well.
Cool.
Listen, here at Hinge, we define influencers in the B2B space as visible experts. And this podcast is really focused on sharing the diverse stories of our guests and really how they built their personal brands. Michael, you are the CEO of the Marketing Insider Group. You're an author of several books, including The Content Formula. You've been recognized by the Huffington Post as a top business keynote speaker. Forbes has listed you as a top CMO influencer, and you're definitely a prolific magazine article writer. And I see you quite a bit. I see a lot of your content on social media. Can you spend a few minutes telling us about your journey to becoming a visible expert and the different paths you've crossed within marketing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, what you missed is that I used to be able to do down dog, and since I've committed to my life to being an expert in marketing, I've lost that
Oh,
ability.
no.
But no, no, it's to be serious. When I joined SAP as their first head of digital marketing and then head of content marketing about 8-9 years ago. Now it's going on 10 actually.
Wow.
And at the time there just wasn't a lot of what I thought were internal corporate marketers who were sharing their stories and their trials and tribulations. And so I started blogging back then. I also selfishly, there's literally a Michael Brenner who's a rocket scientist and a Michael Brenner who's a brain surgeon. And they get their name pops up in Google search more than mine. So I also thought maybe I could increase my search results. But the bottom line is I just committed to sharing once a week a story or a tip with I didn't know anyone would bother to listen by blogging. And I started back in 2008, I think it was, with my first article, Why Am I in Marketing? And I just kept going from there. And as the Marketing Insider, have been taking that approach. And I'm honored and humbled by anyone that reads or shares anything I write. But that's really what got me into it. I'm just trying to teach people not to make the mistakes I've made and maybe to learn from some of the folks that I learned from.
No, that's great. And Michael, you're also the acting CMO at Concurred, a company that uses artificial intelligence to analyze audience behavior at scale to help you plan your content marketing and maximize engagement and ROI. How are you seeing artificial intelligence help content marketing and other forms of marketing?
Well, I figured if the robots are going to take over the world and take our jobs, I thought I would join a company that's got at least a finger on the pulse of that. I mean, I'm a content marketing strategist, and a lot of what I do is relatively, I think, would be relatively easily algorithmatized, if that's a word. So it's kind of a hedge, if you will, to say if bots are going to take over or AI is going to take over some of that work, I want to be a part of it. I do think that I think there's a paradox in AI with marketing, and the paradox is that artificial intelligence will help us to better understand what content and stories resonate with our audience so that we can attract and engage them and convert them. And what's interesting, when I look at the outputs of those algorithms, the outputs are almost always more human forms of communication. And so that's the paradox, is that AI is going to help us to understand what marketing works. But then what are we going to do if those insights are, we need people more activated as storytellers. And so that's the paradox. And I'm trying to, continue to keep my finger on that trend to understand how do we balance the need to understand and utilize data and technology while also staying human.
Yeah, I really like your emphasis on the human component. And in keeping with that, can you talk about the importance of CX, or the customer experience, and why so many marketers are still struggling with it? What's holding them back?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been trying to answer this really for years, and part of it, I think, for me was I started in sales, and I entered the world of marketing from the lens of marketing should only be done when it drives a result. And I think the first problem is that many marketers don't have that lens. I think many people came into marketing with the thought that it's a creative endeavor and it's fun, and I hope it still is for many people, but it needs to drive a result whether it's creative or not. Number one. Number two, and this is true not just in marketing, it's true, engagement, employee engagement around the world is it's a crisis, and I think the reason is that many people enter employment thinking that their job is to do what their boss tells them to do. And what I think is interesting with marketing is it's our natural instinct for a business to want to say we're awesome. And executives who don't understand marketing or don't follow what works will tell marketers, tell everybody how awesome you are. And when that's not at all what customers are looking for, that doesn't drive the customer experience.
Right.
What marketers should be focused on is anything that drives the customer experience in a measurable way. And that's really the bottom line of modern marketing. So those are the two, I think, villains of the story, if you will. It's the lack of desire to really be accountable for results, and the unfortunate belief that we need to do what we're told all the time as a way to be considered a valuable employee. I think that's what gets in the way. I don't think it's technology. I think it's culture. I don't think it's data or lack of insights. Every company has the technology, the data, the insights. It mostly has the people. The people just are not directed in the right direction, and so culture is really, I think, the problem we have to fix.
Yeah, that's definitely a trend that we're seeing in the marketplace today, and maybe it's just taken this long to come to light in the fact that the customer is now they should be the forefront of your marketing strategy. It's not about the features that you offer; it's about the client's experience and optimizing that. And it's something that I saw very evident. I had the pleasure of seeing Bill McDermott speak at the X4 Summit in Salt Lake City this year. And Michael, you said you spent quite some time at SAP. What do you make of SAP's recent merger with Qualtrics?
Well, yeah, and Bill was actually the whole reason I found myself with a content marketing title position was because of Bill. Bill gave an amazing keynote at an SAP conference, back in 2010, I think, and told stories of customer value. And he got off the stage and in a conversation with our CMO said, why don't we tell those stories on our website? And that actually led me to taking a content marketing role and really thrusted me into the content marketing industry. And sort of the story has been, kind of written since then. Yeah. I mean, Qualtrics, customer insights platform and I think SAP is doubling down on customer insights, customer experience, because, well, it needed to. I mean, the SAP platform was never really known as having a CX or UX strength. It was amazingly developed. It was extremely efficient, very German, kind of mentality, but did not focus on CX. And so Bill's bringing that, I think, mentality and that ethos into the organization. I think Qualtrics is a great example of, them putting their money where their mouth is. Bill talks a lot about empathy and talks a lot about, in changing the culture to focus on empathy. And I think that's really part of the recipe for success for CX is, it's really changing the culture inside the organizations like we just talked about. Right. My next book, I'll give you guys a teaser. So my next book is called Mean People Suck. and it was slightly inspired by Bill. So first of all, meanpeoplesuck.com was not owned by anyone. So I bought that domain and I'm the proud owner. But it's really the recipe for success in CX. It's, we do what we're told because our boss tells us to, and our boss usually doesn't have any empathy. Organizations aren't naturally built with empathy. Our colleagues around the organization don't talk about, hey, I love Michael. He's a really empathetic guy to our customers. And so Mean People Suck is a business book about how we can resist the natural tendency to suck as an organization, as a leader, as a marketer, and focus on answering that question of what are we doing to deliver customer value? And, talk about the org chart. How are we putting customers in the org chart? And I use a model called the bullseye that really, literally puts the customer at the center of the org chart. So anyway, so just a little teaser for my upcoming book there, but I think it answers, sort of this question on CX.
No, that's really great, and I like the idea of putting the customers at the center of the org chart. I think that's a really good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, from time to time, I've heard you talk about employee activation. I'd really like to know, how does a firm implement an employee activation program from your perspective?
Yeah. It's actually one of the biggest trends that no one is talking about in my
Mm-hmm.
mind in marketing. Some people refer to employee advocacy, which I think is different. Employee advocacy is, hey, we have a press release. That's not employee activation. The intention is different and wrong in my mind. Employee activation is actually a logical outflow of the core premise of Mean People Suck, which is, if you put the customer at the center in order to serve the company's interests, right? How do we grow the company? Well, we grow it by focusing on customers and their value. But when you ask those questions, how do we grow the company? We grow it by focusing on customers. How do we focus on customers? The answer is, we need our employees to do so. We need frontline employees and back office employees all focused on answering this question: what's in it for the customer? And so I call it employee activation, because guess who can provide the most value for customers? Your employees. Activating your employees to share what they know is one of the greatest ways to scale marketing. Asking your employees who want to share, stories of engagement and leadership and insight with their audiences in a authentic way, not propaganda, not promotion, not press releases, but things that actually help people. I've seen employees are happy to do that, at least a good portion of them, and it's also good for them. It grows their personal brand, and that's the message, right? It's like, hey, we can help you build your brand as a person, as an individual, so that you can go and become a thought leader in any. It has to come from that place of authenticity and true empathy. And so that's employee activation. It's really thinking of your employees as the source for scaling your marketing through stories and through sharing and distribution.
Now, that's a great tip. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, research from Episerver shows that 95% of marketers say they know how important multi-channel is for targeting, yet only 73 have a multi-channel strategy, or 73%. How can marketing heads develop strategies that will wield the most relevant channels for a brand without wasting marketing dollars or overwhelming customers with too much information?
Yeah, I mean, I have maybe a slightly controversial view on the whole multi-channel concept. It's, I'm on a mission to kill the sort of the words content and campaign inside modern marketing organizations, and I mean modern marketing because if you're a traditional company and you want to do traditional advertising, then create content and push it out through channels. If you're a modern marketing organization, you realize that customers are engaging with content every day, everywhere, all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think it almost hurts us to think through a multi-channel strategy. But I guess it's more helpful than thinking in single channel capacity. But that's the reason we do. The reason we do single channel marketing is because we think in terms of campaign. We think, I'm going to create a message for a channel to be always on, and we should be informed based on, like I said, where our customers are consuming content all over the place all the time. And so, a multi-channel strategy happens naturally out of simply looking at the channels your customers are consuming content, the kinds of content they're content all the time. It's like I always say that, people are searching on their web browsers every minute of the day. Why aren't brands creating content every minute of the day, on every channel? And so that's really, I think, the point there is we have to kill the campaign mentality. We have to kill the single asset or content mentality and start thinking about marketing strategy as a publisher-like strategy. The other joke I always say is, CNN didn't wake up this morning and say, oh, Trump is out, he's in the UK, so we're not going to write about US politics. No, they write every single day about the topics that they cover. Brands need to do the same.
That's great. I'm actually taking a few notes here.
Cool.
All right, Mr. Content Marketing Strategist. Why are content calendars important to marketers, and how would you suggest someone go about diversifying their content?
Yeah. I love content calendars because they're, I think, a forcing function for an effective content strategy. So it's kind of like step one is document your content strategy. So that's a shameless plug for me and other consultants out there that do it. But the point is, you need, it needs to be written down. It needs to be shared within a team so that everyone gets on board with this always on content marketing mentality. Once you have that, the content calendar is the forcing function to make sure you actually do it. It assigns the tasks out, it assigns who does what and where it's going to get pushed. And, but more than anything else, it keeps you on a rhythm. So people sometimes say, what's your one tip for effective content? It's frequency. And then, the naysayers out there say, are you saying quantity over quality? And it's no, I'm not saying that at all. Again, back to my CNN example, CNN doesn't say, or their journalists, their beat writers don't say, oh my gosh, I have a daily, deadline. I'm not going to create a great article because it's a daily deadline. No, they create the best article they can every single day when that's their deadline. So, commit to a frequency, and that frequency will drive results. Deadlines are the greatest source of inspiration is a quote from Mark Twain. So use the calendar as the forcing function for that commitment and to drive that frequency.
No, that's really great, Michael. And we found that most of our clients are marketing with content instead of content marketing. Can you explain a little bit about how marketers can get better at kind of that mindset and thinking about content marketing as opposed to marketing with content?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with, and this is sort of embedded in some of the questions we've already been through. But the first one, I think, is content marketing is a destination. It's a single place that you originate your content. So for most brands, it's a corporate blog. A social media tweet is not content marketing because that tweet lives on Twitter. A YouTube video is not content marketing because it lives on YouTube. It's also frequently created and published with the customer in mind. So again, a single video on YouTube, a tweet, even if it's an everyday tweet, is not content marketing because one, it's not on a destination you own, and two, it's not frequent. So those are the two big things that I think define the difference between marketing with content and content marketing. The other thing that's really interesting, because a lot of clients will ask me like, hey, what's the ROI of that article we did last Monday? Any piece of content, I really try to resist clients pushing me to push an ROI or a value on any single piece of content. It's kind of like saying, in all of the time that I was dating my wife, which sentence or word or paragraph or even date led to the fact that she agreed to, say yes when I proposed. It was the entirety of our relationship, and it's true for content marketing as well. And I hate to use marriage proposal analogies, but it's the first one that came to mind. It's better than the you're trying to pick up a pretty girl in a bar. At least I stuck with my wife, but
Yeah.
But I think the analogy holds true. It's really hard. You don't form relationships with people because of a word or a sentence or a paragraph or a single piece of content. It really comes down to the entirety of the feeling that you're committed to that relationship and that you've got good intentions. And that's how we get people to know, like, and trust us enough to buy from us.
So what else should folks be doing as far as trying to measure their content marketing efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I think you should measure it at each stage of the buyer journey, I like to say the business case for content marketing is reach, engage, convert, and retain. Those are the objectives really of any marketing program is reach or awareness, engagement or deeper relationships, conversion, obviously that sort of act, that call to action. And then retention is kind of the often forgotten objective for marketing. Mm-hmm. And then there's content marketing measures in each one of those. So for reach, I like to look at unbranded search traffic or just organic search traffic overall. In engagement, subscribers, email subscribers. So are you publishing content that's so good that people are willing to give you their email address and invite you into their already overcrowded inbox? That's an amazing measure of content marketing value. It's also something you can put a quantifiable, measure on. you can nurture email addresses and you can measure the revenue from your email database. So I love subscribers as and opt-in rate as a measure. Leads is something, measuring conversion is something that we've done in marketing forever. But then retention. So this is really interesting. The companies I've worked with that have measured the lifetime value or the upsell, cross-sell, or the, any kind of revenue per customer of the customers that engaged with their content marketing versus those who didn't. So I'll say that again. Companies create two sort of databases. One is the database of customers that engaged with their content, and then they split that with the database of customers who didn't engage with their content. And what I've seen in every example is 3 to 4 to 10x higher numbers for customers when they engage with your content marketing efforts. So, people spend more and stay longer when you engage with content, and that's a great measure of lifetime value and an amazing way to show return on investment for content marketing.
So can you give us an example of some of those different content pieces or formats, or what's driving that engagement?
Like I said, I think the consistency is the main factor. A customer-focused mentality has to be there. It doesn't mean you can't promote in a relevant way. For a lot of brands, it means an inline ad or a italicized text at the bottom of an article, or a call to action to come to an event. I love events as a conversion point for content, because it's still in the non-promotion sort of side of the funnel, but it's obviously much deeper in engagement. So I love ultimate guides and buyer's guides. I think what I call profile videos work really well. So there's a difference between a talking head customer testimonial and a profile video where I sit down with a customer and I ask them, hey, Mary, tell me about yourself. What's your job like? What do you like about your company? What challenges do you face? Ask every question but the question why they bought from you. And it's much more interesting, that kind of content. So those are just some of the examples of the things that I've seen work for brands. We were on an infographic kick a while ago. A lot of people are jumping on the live video bandwidth, or bandwagon, bandwidth and bandwagon, actually. But I think it's different for everybody. I think you got to test and see what works for you.
No, that's great. And, I love how visible you are on social media, and how animated your website is at marketinginsidergroup.com. As a leader in the digital marketing space, what do you see as the future of content in digital marketing?
Yeah, it's the future trend question is something that I used to write a post every year, and then I got so embarrassed that I was wrong all the time. But then what I found is the second I stopped publishing my predictions, they started coming true. So maybe I should go back to that, to publishing it. I don't know. Then it'll stop becoming true. But it's actually been the same trends I've been talking about for 2 years, even 3. Number one, we're becoming more visual as a society. And so I do think brands need to start to think about how to invest in scaling visual content production. And the reason I think it's challenging is, I offer a weekly blog subscription service for really a low amount of money, $3-4 grand a month. You can get 2 to 4 articles a week. I've got the text thing nailed down. I can commit and almost guarantee an increase in organic search traffic based on that written word. But to do visual content is a lot harder. It's a lot more expensive. I don't do it, because of those things. It's not an expert area of mine, but visual content is so important. The second we touched upon, and that is the humanization of content. Look for the folks inside your organization that are actually interested in telling their story. One of the greatest things in technology companies I found at SAP was there were engineers, product engineers, who geeked out and really wanted to tell their story. And when we started telling the stories of some of our engineers, they engaged so well with not only with us and the stories that they told, but with our audience. And they started driving real engagement. It was kind of cool to see. So we talked about employee activation, but the humanization of content is the trend. The third piece is personalization. And this probably has the most technology dependency. There's a number of companies out there I know that my good friends at Marketo have a content AI functionality that they've built. I've done some work with Ideo, Sailthrough, OneSpot, and I'm trying to think of some others that I could mention. I'm not affiliated with any of those companies, but personalization engines, I think, are the kinds of companies, the kinds of technologies that companies should be thinking about if they're in the mature phase of their content marketing.
I think that's kind of ironic, Michael, how you say personalization is so dependent on technology.
It is. It's just like the paradox of AI. It's the same paradox. And I was going to say, notice the one trend I didn't mention was ABM. In B2B. It's just, I'm so tired. I'm frustrated by the fact that it's a valid, relevant trend. And it's frustrating for me because I just see it as a distribution channel for content marketing, effective content marketing. If you look at your customers, you'll see that they've always wanted to be communicated with at an account level and with the buying buying center, we used to call them buying centers at SAP, the buying journey, the thronged buying center. There's different individuals involved, there's different content types. It's all, to me, just effective content strategy. And so I guess I should say I'm frustrated by it, but it's a lot of companies are seeing value from it. And if it forces companies to look upstream to document their content strategy, I'm happy for it.
Very cool. Well, Michael, for our listeners who want to read more of your thought leadership and to kind of get in touch with you, where would you recommend they go?
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that opportunity. So you can find my content on marketinginsidergroup.com. While I'm no longer a corporate marketing insider, I still try to convey that perspective and point of view of what do real marketers need to know and need to do. And I'm on Twitter at Brenner Michael. You can check out my book Mean People Suck on meanpeoplesuck.com in a couple of months. I think it'll be launched in September or October. And I'd be happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn as well.
Well, I agree. Mean people do suck. So I'm really looking forward to reading your book.
Yes, they do. Thanks.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on our show. And it was a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It was a fun conversation.
No, I enjoyed it. And like I said, I even took a few notes on the side here. So thanks for your great insights, Michael.
Yeah, thanks. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
And that was our conversation with Michael Brenner. And it was jam-packed with some actionable insights. So, Kelly, what did you think?
I think he knows content marketing.
I think he does too. All right. Well, for our listeners out there, we're actually gonna, if you made it this far, we've got a special treat for you. We're actually gonna do a mailbag. So if you have any questions that you'd like Kelly or I to answer, please reach us at podcast@hingemarketing.com and send your questions there, and we'll read them on the next podcast. Until then, this is John and Kelly signing off.